I am still coming to you from the beach. Been out here for nearly a month, coming to the end of a bit of a world trip where I've been working remotely, selling other people's products and services online. I quit my 9-to-5 job, something like 3 to 4 years ago at this point, and ever since I have had more money in my pocket and more opportunity to spend my life the way I want to spend it. And I want to talk to you today about why sales offers one of the best possible opportunities for someone with limited experience to start making an outsized amount of money for that amount of experience they have. So potentially a young graduate like I was, potentially someone who doesn't have a lot of business experience, maybe they've worked in hands-on or technical fields or something like that. And it all comes down to one key principle. And that principle is that the closer you can get to the point at which money changes hands, the more opportunity you have to capture some of that money. Let me break this down and explain it to you. So, in any business, if you think about the opposite of being close to the money, right? Someone who perhaps works in the administrative field, the administrative part of the business, they're about as far away from the point at which money changes hands as you can get. They're not immediately affecting that business's bottom line. They're not immediately affecting that business's profit and loss. And thus, those jobs generally aren't paid particularly well. So I'm talking about corporate jobs right now. Okay. Generally speaking, the part of the company with the lowest salaries is going to be administration, possibly HR, something like that. And if you think about the opposite end of the business, right, you're thinking about marketing. So now we're getting a little bit warmer. We're getting a little bit closer to the point at which money changes hands. You're getting a little bit closer to being able to affect how money actually comes into that business. Because in the marketing department, you're going out and you're affecting new business, right? How new people find that business that could then potentially become customers. So we're getting warmer, but we're still not right there. The position or the part of the business that directly affects where money changes hands always has been, and it's always going to be the sales department, because you are literally the last person that one of that business's potential customers speaks to before they actually reach into their pocket, pull out their credit card and make the purchase. Pause for the wind. There we go. So people in the sales department have a couple of very key advantages because of this proximity they have to the point where revenue is collected. First, they have much better negotiation power, right, on how their contract is structured. We'll get to that in just a second. Second, they're going to earn a lot more money. They're going to earn a lot more money because they are basically much more indispensable. They're much harder to replace than other departments, other parts of the business. And usually that compensation is going to come partly in the form of commissions. So they're actually going to be paid, as a salesperson, you're going to be paid a percentage of the money that you bring into that company, ideally on top of a base salary as well. Now, the reason this gives outsized opportunities to beginners or people with lower experience is that income, that result that you're bringing in for the company is tied directly to your performance, is not tied to how much knowledge you have in the particular field. And your performance is basically coming down to communication skills. So there's no reason why someone couldn't walk in off the street, get into a sales role, just be really, really good at communicating, perhaps have minimal nudging in the right direction, and be able to absolutely exceed in that role and bring in loads of money for the company. There's nothing stopping you from doing that, right? Potentially, you need to have that skill set honed, but the possibility is there. If you think about some other field like accounting, okay, without a pretty fundamental understanding of the tax regulations in whichever jurisdiction the business is, you're not going to just wander into, or the odds of you wandering into the accounting department and excelling at that are pretty slim. Okay, I don't think there's very many natural born accountants out there. Maybe people who are good at numbers, but they still don't naturally understand tax law. Much higher chances of a beginner being able to break into the sales department. So those two key benefits that I mentioned about being close to the money, right? More negotiation power on your contracts, you're more irreplaceable, and making more money. Those are magnified the smaller the business that you work for becomes. Very surprising to a lot of people that big companies will pay a lot less money than small businesses. And that is because both of those effects that we're talking about are magnified. So in a large business, right, like a big tech firm, for example, that's what I used to work for, there are hundreds, if not thousands of salespeople, right? Even those who are doing very, very well are basically replaceable. In a small business, like the types I work for or work with now, not the case. You might be the only salesperson. You might be one of a team of 2 or 3 who are closing business for that company, or that small business, we should say. Therefore, you are much more irreplaceable. Second, these small businesses are much leaner, much lower overheads. So they're very happy to pay more so on results, i.e. higher commission weighting versus base salary versus upfront money, retainer, whatever you want to call it, however the deal is structured. They're often going to pay you much higher percentage commissions because the revenue that you bring into them is going to be a much bigger portion of the pie of the overall revenue to their business. Right? We just mentioned big companies, massive sales team, massive revenue. The amount that you could feasibly bring into them as an individual to move the needle is very small. Whereas for these small businesses, the amount that you bring in potentially as the only salesperson is going to be absolutely massive to that business. And as a result, you get compensated accordingly. So there we go. That is, in a nutshell, why working in remote sales, selling other people's products and services, specifically in the creator economy, right? Selling products and services of influencers, KOLs, YouTubers, Instagram guys, etc., is going to make you a lot more money than working for big corporations, and it's going to be much easier to get to those income levels for yourself quicker with lower experience than it is working for big companies, big corporations. There you go. Hope you found it interesting. Hope you found it informative. That's my take. Go and find small, lean internet businesses and sell their products and services for them. Make a lot of money, enjoy your life, and make that money from anywhere in the world that you so choose. Cheers.